I have been in love with Kirstie Alley since I was about 5 years old. She became the first actress I paid attention to when she was in It Takes Two and also Toothless. And it took me a while to get around to watching Fat Actress just because I don't like the negative title. I can completely see why this exists and the kind of tongue in cheek aspect of it and the irony of it all. But it took me a while to watch, and once I did watch it, I fell in love with it, as I knew I would, because it's Kirstie Alley. The concept is quite simple. Kirstie Alley plays an actress called Kirstie Alley. She is, of course, an exaggerated version of herself, and her career is going down the drain because Hollywood television thinks that she is too large to, be a protagonist, to have any kind of prominent role. And in this first episode, which is called Big Butts, she ends up getting a meeting with this individual called Jeff Zucker, and she has to try and convince him and everybody else that actually she's right for certain roles. She can be in TV. She can get her career back to where it needs to be, and it's quite silly humor in a way, and in a way it's also very serious because a lot of it is flippant. There's a particular incident. Is it this episode or the one after? French fries. That's all I'll say. But it just amused me so much. But I really liked the atmosphere of this. I liked the TV studio rooms, and I liked her conversations with her agent. It worked very well. I thought the dialogue was all very good. Kirstie's behavior is the character of Kirstie is convincing. I certainly believe that a lot of this is not an act, because unfortunately, as we all know, Hollywood and the entertainment industry in general is horrible to anybody, any woman who weighs more than £100, and it's awful, and I could talk about that for hours in a whole separate video if you haven't seen. In fact, I'll talk about that later. But it's really funny and quite flippant and done with really good humor. But maybe just because I'm in love with Kirstie Alley, I get a bit emotional when I see her in distress, especially when she's playing herself. But I feel like a lot of this is coming from truth. Maybe not Kirstie Alley's truth, but this is something that a lot of women face. And I think it's really important that this narrative was told and that this episode, really kicks off this journey into saying, look, just because somebody is a little curvier than they used to be, it doesn't mean they're not good at acting. It doesn't mean they're not worthy of attention. It doesn't mean they're not talented. How does a woman overcome that? Well, the first episode isn't the best example of how to overcome that, but I can't say any more than that. But it's self-aware. It knows what it's doing. It knows the messages that it's trying to get across. And certainly with this first episode, I think it does it very well. This first episode is directed by Keith Truesdell and written by Brenda Hampton and Kirstie Alley. And John Travolta is also in it, of course, as a good friend of Kirstie Alley. If you haven't seen the Look Who's Talking trilogy of films, you need to do it. You will love them. There's a very funny line in this about doing Look Who's Talking 4 with cats, and it's brilliant. Do you need to be a fan of Kirstie Alley to enjoy this? No, you don't need to have seen anything she's done before to be able to get the benefit of the message and feel the rawness of the emotions. But there are certain lines and certain things, like when John Travolta's in it and they're discussing Look Who's Talking, where if you are familiar with her career, you will benefit more from those. But ultimately, I think it's really important and something that everybody needs to watch because it's eye-opening. Well, I say it's eye-opening. We're all aware that Hollywood does this, but it will make you think. It will make you question a lot. It is quite flippant. It is a comedy. It doesn't seem to take itself seriously that much. But at the same time, you can read so much into this. And even just in this first episode, the writing feels so raw and so real. And it's an emotional roller coaster, particularly if you love Kirstie Alley. It's brilliant. Definitely worth a watch. big butts is great.